15th of January 2024. Car's been on the road for a couple of months now, and then is just about to roll over 1,000 miles since the MOT. So it's done 1,000 miles. There we go. Currently on the M25, taking it a bit easy, 55 miles an hour. Hovers around sort of 50 miles per gallon. I think we're on this particular journey, we're on 58.7. And it's been alright. Everything that's supposed to work works. There is a leak from the vacuum pump still, just on the passenger side of the engine. That was the advisory noted on the MOT. It has had a new vacuum pump. It's had 2 new vacuum pump seals, and it's still leaking, so I need to investigate that a little bit further. I've got some oil with me today. It's at 5:30 because I'm on a 200-mile round trip. There's some slight clonking from the rear end, which I can't figure out. It sounds almost as if there's something rattling around in the boot, but there isn't. I haven't figured out yet. This lorry's going to pull out in a minute, I'm sure of it. I haven't figured out yet whether that's something to do with the rear shocks, bump stops, or something like that on the rear. There he goes. Or whether it is something to do with the fact that where the rear bumper has had a bit of a knock, there's something loose. Can't quite figure that out, but it doesn't seem to be affecting how the car drives. It drives quite well on the motorway. The top mounts on the front need changing. They clonk a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. All in all, with it being my daily driver now since October, it's been all right. It's been all right. There's still a bit of a whiff occasionally from the interior. You notice it more when you get into it, when it's a bit cold and damp. There's an occasional very slight leak when it's really pouring with rain, just on this joint here, but it's a convertible. It's quite an old car. There's no shame in that. It's certainly not damp in here as if there's any kind of serious issues with the convertible roof. So all in all, it's really not doing too badly, and we're at 1,000 miles into MOT, and touch wood, no issues so far. Well, 73,000 miles now. It's done 1,700 miles since the service and MOT. We are in mid-February, so it's past the new year. It is still going, but we've had a couple of little niggles. Persistent oil leak here. This vacuum pump oil seal is leaking persistently. It's had a new oil seal put on, still leaked, so we thought maybe it's the actual pump itself is leaking, one of the seals internally. So it had a new pump, as you can see, it's nice and shiny. It's still leaking, so we're going to go for another new seal and gum it up with a load of sealant and see what happens at the third attempt. The other issue that we've had intermittently is the same fault code that caused engine management light to come on is recurring, which is this thing down here, which is the exhaust camshaft solenoid. That was one of the engine management light causes when I first got the car. Cleaned the solenoid out, reset it, seemed okay. Went about 1,000 miles, then it happened again. There's a little cough, and then it started running slightly rough. It was still perfectly drivable, but running a little bit rough. Cleaned it out again, and it was good for about 500 miles. And then the other day it did it again, put my OBD scanner on it, and same thing. So for the sake of 40 quid, we're just going to put a nice brand new camshaft solenoid on. So those are little jobs for this afternoon: cam solenoid and another vacuum pump oil seal, and we'll see what happens. The alternator weirdly just seemed to have sorted itself out in the end. Say 1,700 miles, no charging issues, no flat batteries, hasn't dropped any fluid since we changed that bottom hose and the new thermostat housing. And to be fair to it, it hasn't actually let me down at all. It does 65 miles per gallon on the motorway if I'm being really good. can't complain really. So yes, a little bit of maintenance this afternoon. Right, so I fixed the hazard light switch. That had just fallen out at the back and gave me no hazard warning lights, but the little display up there, which is this here, one of the lines, pixels, has stopped working. Realistically, there isn't anything I can do with this other than take it apart, give it a good spray with some electrical cleaner, let it dry and put it back together. I'm not going to get the screen wet because I think that'll just make it worse. So this will either do something or it won't, basically. These aren't expensive, but if I can get this one working, then that's 20 quid that I don't have to spend. So yes, it's very hit or miss this, very hit or miss, not going to hold my breath. Well, the never-ending story of Peugeot oil leaks continues. 2 new vacuum pump seals, new vacuum pump, new rocker cover gasket, and we're still leaking oil. And we're leaking oil now from places where there wasn't one in the first place. We've now got a leak just down in here. Fresh oil, wasn't there before. And we're leaking out of here. Now this isn't actually the rocker cover gasket, this is coming out from the cap that hides the ignition coils. And underneath here, where we've had what's been always been assumed to be a vacuum pump oil seal leak, we've got another intermittent leak, or potentially the same intermittent leak. So changing tack a little bit, and I'm starting to wonder whether the issue isn't the fact that we've got oil leaks. Well, I mean, it is the issue obviously, but is the oil leak, is there an underlying cause? So what we're going to do, for the sake of 20 quid and 5 minutes work, is we're going to change that under there, the positive crankcase valve. Got a new one here, just a little rubber diaphragm and a spring. This apparently can seize and jam and that sort of thing, causes overpressure in the engine, in the crankcase, and works its way up to the cylinder head, and because of the overpressure forces oil out where the oil shouldn't be forced out. So that might explain why a very competent local mechanic that I've known for nearly 30 years has done a simple job like changing a rocker cover gasket and still got an oil leak. I'm wondering maybe if this is the issue, so we're going to change that and see what happens. Other little odds and ends, we're going to change the rearview mirror on the inside for one that's not got the anti-glare film sort of seeping into the glass. We are going to put a nice new gear stick on, one that's the metal's not all, or the metal finish isn't all coming off, and I've managed to find some half decent window control and roof switches, which were, I mean, they're miles ahead, miles better than what's in there already. These are really expensive second hand, and they don't look great second hand. You don't seem to be able to find new ones anywhere. So I've got this, and a fellow at my work who does model making and model painting has got loads of little brushes and airbrushes and that sort of thing, has very kindly dabbed the sort of spots where the paint was, or the finish was coming off the switches, and put some lacquer over the top. So they look a bit better now. Hopefully that will last. So these are this afternoon's little jobs. So we're in the car now. There's my existing switches. This is the new ones. That's a massive improvement, but I don't actually know if they work. Can they go around the other way? I don't actually know if they work yet, so I'm going to swap these over and see what happens. Also, put an LED light in here, which is like the sun now, so that's very bright. And I've got some new ones on the for the map reading lights. And yeah, I'm going to swap this over as well, and that'll make the rear vision a little bit better. So first thing first, get this off and see if these ones actually work. Okay, so the PCV valve is off. That's the old one. I mean, it's a bit dirty, but it's, I mean, the rubber, there's still some flecks in the rubber. It doesn't look horrendous, and that's maybe a little bit hard compared to this one, which is brand new one, very flexible, and it's sort of sealed to the cap and pops in and out quite nicely, whereas this one does seem to be maybe a little bit more inflexible. So maybe that is making a difference, I don't know. And a nice fresh spring, obviously. A little bit more worrying is that there is clearly oil underneath the cap up there that covers the coils, and there is what looks like oil there and in there. So I'm wondering if bleaching out a little bit there. Yeah, I'm wondering if oil is getting into that spark plug well, and possibly that one, because there's moisture here. That side's dry, that side's wet, and the filler neck and the PCV valve are both on the dry side of the engine, so I don't see any other way of oil getting over here other than up through the spark plug wells. That's all right in there. It does look ever so slightly damp maybe compared to this side, but the car's running all right at the moment, so there's definitely oil there. Yeah, no question. I wonder if oil's getting up through those spark plug wells. So maybe the interior gaskets on in this rocker cover have failed. The question is that caused by a faulty PCV valve, which isn't letting pressure out when it should be? I don't suppose I'll know until I get that in. But the extra oil leaks are here on this side. This has never leaked before. And out here. But again, it looks like that rocker cover gasket hasn't failed there. That's coming from on top, so I wonder if it's coming out here. Maybe from the filler neck bubbling out and landing here. Is this going to be solved by changing that? That's the question. Right, well, pools of oil cleaned up out of there. Looks a little bit damp because there's still some brake cleaner on it which needs to flash off, but that is now oil free in there. So no standing oil now along this part of the rocker cover. Nice new spring. Nice new PCV valve, which apparently just plonks onto the top like that and looks about right. Oh, it's not keen about going on. There it is. And it's fitting about the same as the other one. I'll put all this back on, give it a clean up the top, clean the oil off around there, and we'll see. Question is, has the damage been done already, and are these seals now finished, or if this is the issue and that pressure is going to be released as it should, will these seals be okay? Who knows? Alright, so engine management light came on the way to work. So as well as the persistent air circuit fault code, we're now going to have something else. Mail status on. What have we got? Vehicles code, just plate me manufacturer, yeah. Peugeot. So we're going to see the air circuit one, because that's been on for a few days. That's the reason I think the cooling fans keeps coming in. And they both just say air circuit. So there was one fault code for air circuit. Now there's two fault codes for air circuit. But the message on the screen there did say anti-pollution system faulty. Now that comes up for various reasons. I'll turn that off. Still hear the cooling fan going. The air conditioning or the heater aren't on. None of that is on. And the car's only, well, probably about 75 degrees, so not particularly hot. Right, so those fault codes have been cleared. So now in theory, engine management light goes out, cooling fan straight back on again. Now, is it going to stay off? So we've got a few little misfires, most of them on cylinder 1, I think. Turn that radio off. So what have we got? There's just been a little wobble there. I just heard a little wobble there at idle. And another one there. And another one. So far all 4 cylinders are saying 0 counts of misfire. Oops, wrong one. There, 6 counts. So we're getting quite a persistent, very slight misfire. Cylinder 1, none in cylinder 2, none cylinder 3, none cylinder 4. And there was another one, another little wobble there. 7. Yep. So cylinder 1 is misfiring every now and again. We've got the persistent air circuit fault code. And then today into work, the engine management light came on with the anti-pollution system faulty message on the screen there, but that can be all sorts of things. And I had 2 fault codes for air circuit. So none at the moment. I suspect that will come back. Well, getting into early April now. Car's been used as a daily driver. Still just about in one piece, a bit rough around the edges, but in one piece. This looks spectacular because this bumper's been off again, because the saga of the oil leaks is still ongoing. This is new. This whole manifold had to come off because there was an oil leak way down the depths of where the oil filter housing joins onto the block. There's a little gasket all the way down there, and you can't get to it without the exhaust manifold coming off, and you can't get the exhaust manifold all the way off without moving or taking off the radiator. So the radiator and everything was all taken off. So while that was off, you can't really see now because I've put the front bumper back on, but there's a new condenser under there. That original condenser was had seen better days, so there is a new condenser in there, and what this hopefully means now is that there will no longer be puddles of oil underneath the car. That was the last of the actual leaks that physically needed repairing. There are still leaks. There was leaks coming out from underneath here, and there was oil around here. The fella who did the gasket for me, so I can do that myself because I had no way of evacuating the air conditioning system, not properly anyway, so I booked that in. So he seems to think that the oil that was congregating here is a result of oil potentially coming out of the filler cap, but the filler cap looks okay. It doesn't look, it's secure, it doesn't rattle, it's definitely on, it clicks on very positively, so I'm really not sure. And there is still a little bit of oily blue smoke every now and again through the exhaust, even though I've changed the PCV valve up here. So that's oil potentially getting into the cylinders, probably even the valves or piston rings, which isn't uncommon on these engines. And the other issue that it decided to throw up the other day, because you know, why have just one issue when you can have a couple, the engine management light is back on with an air circuit fault code. It isn't any more precise than that. Somebody with better diagnostic equipment than me has narrowed it down to an intake air pressure issue. So he seems to think that putting a new map sensor on might solve it. Not really much else it can be. There is a potential that if there's air getting in through the filler cap, if it's very, very loose, that can cause air pressure issues. The PCV valve is new, so that should rule that out. I'm not convinced that that's the issue, because that's certainly not loose, and I'm probably fairly convinced now that the vacuum pump is clean. Yeah, really no oil coming out from underneath there now. I'm pretty sure that that is okay now, although it has had a good clean up and it's not been run since significantly, so we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, all the air duct work will come off because the map sensor is ducked way down underneath there, but hopefully that will sort that out. For the time being, back on with the heat shield, and then wheels off each side to connect up the inner wheel arch linings, and that'll be the car back together, and then change this map sensor and see what happens next. Well, excitingly, all the battery and the ECU and all the air pipe work had to come off just to swap over this one tiny little thing. So this is the old one. There's a bit of oil in it, and the O-ring looks like it's maybe not as bulbous as the other one, so hopefully this will be the cause of my air circuit warning light. I can't really see anything obviously wrong. The oil filler cap had a little bead of silicone put around it, and that's curing in the sun, so we'll see if that makes difference. Although I mean, it really did feel tight, so not sure what the reason was for this oil coming out of here yet. But the important thing is get this new, apparently this is a combined map and MAF sensor, so it's mass airflow and maximum absolute pressure. It does both supposedly, so can't see anything else sensor related. So I'm hopeful that this is going to be the cause. A bit of oil down there, so fingers crossed this sorts it out. Right, there we go, one 8mm bolt, and
plug is so tucked away it's impossible to see. It's underneath. There it is. That's it. There's the bolt that you tie it on with. Yeah, one nice new airflow sensor.
Yeah, what a brilliant place to put it. Well, I suppose it's got to go somewhere. Okay, so we're outside today. It's still trying to trace an oil leak from the rocker cover somewhere, and hope that this is related to the persistent engine management light and fault code for air circuit. The oil filler cap has been replaced, the map sensor down the bottom has been replaced. They were the two likely candidates to throw up this air circuit fault code. It looks really bad now because I've done a couple of 100 miles, but after sort of 50-60 miles I'd check this, and this area around here was clean, whereas there was oil here, and there is quite a lot of oil here. I mean, that's a fair amount of oil bubbling up from somewhere. There is also oil underneath here on the bottom of the vacuum pump, and there is oil underneath the rocker cover just here. Whether or not that is oil that's sort of creeping around and pooling there from here, I don't know. I was hoping that first of all I was hoping that the new map sensor would clear the fault code. Then I was hoping that the new filler cap would clear the fault code, and it didn't. So what I was hoping, because there is also a misfire on cylinder number 1, occasionally a slight sort of loss of power and cough as you go up hills. From what I understand, cylinder number 1 on these Peugeots is this side rather than that side. So I was hoping it would be the oil pooling here, that maybe there would be a gasket failure just inside the spark plug well, and that when I pulled this coil out I would see oil, which would explain potentially the misfire and the air circuit fault code. But there isn't. It's dry as a bone down there, and the coil looks like it's in good condition. There's actually no oil in there, and that connection looks fine. So I mean, it's good news because that's not broken. It's bad news because it means I still have no further forward. Is there a crack somewhere in this plastic? I don't know. I think what I'm going to have to do is book this in, get a smoke test done. I had a little fiddle with the hose air from the vacuum pump. That looks like it's in properly. So I don't know, I'm at a loss, and the gardener's coming now with his strimmer. It's going to make it too noisy to talk. So yeah, still a bit of a loss. I'm going to swap these coils over though and see if I get the misfire transfer into number 3 and see if that changes it, or number 2 as this would be. Okay, so the good news is also the bad news. Good news is those spark plug wells weren't full of oil at all. The other good news, I suppose, is that none of these spark plugs look significantly different to the other. These are them in order. So this is cylinder number 1, I believe, which is the one with the misfire. I mean, there's a little bit of oil around there. It looks like the actual gap itself and everything, when they do look like fresh plugs still. They've only done a couple of 1,000 miles, so they're a little bit dirty, but I know there is oil getting into the cylinders, but one doesn't look massively different from the other, not really. So there's no obvious clue with the spark plug as to why a cylinder might be misfiring. There's no clue in the spark plug wells as to why there is oil here. The coils, again, these are all in order. They all look fine. No dirt in any of the connections, no breaks or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is swap spark plug that was in cylinder number 1 and the coil into cylinder number 2 and see if the misfire transfers into cylinder number 2. Bearing in mind all these plugs look fine, I will suggest then that means that there is a coil not doing too well, or it could be actually these will stay in the same place. So yeah, I've ruled another couple of things out, but equally I'm not really any further forward, so we'll just transfer these plugs and coils over, top cylinders 1 and 2, see if I get a misfire into cylinder number 2. Right, so what we're going to do, just to see what happens, is we snap the end off of that glove, the little elasticated bit, and we've put it in there just to bolster that O-ring a little bit, and then we'll put that on and take it for a drive and see where the oil appears from, or if any oil appears at all. That's all been cleaned. The underneath of the rocker cover has been cleaned with brake cleaner and allowed to flash off, just in case there is something spurting up from down in there somewhere, or mist. If there's a misting there and nothing around here, that might indicate where it's coming from. So yeah, trial and error, I think, in lieu of a proper smoke test. Right, 74527, go for a drive, see what happens with that bit of rubber glove around the oil filler cap and the coils moved around. Right, so misfire count cylinder number 1, we've got 14 on that, and then 71, so we're looking at 14 and 71 are the figures. I don't know what the difference is between the two, to be honest. Cylinder number 2, we've got 1 and 0. Cylinder number 3 is 1 and 1, and cylinder number 4 is 0 and 0. So we'll see what happens once it's run up and running. Okay, 5 or 6 mile drive I've just been, not far at all, and there we go. As you can see, it's smoking and it's all up there, so it's oil bouncing up there, so it's coming from down there. So is there a crack in there? What's causing that? Is it just badly sealed? Is it that bolt? Is that bolt not tight? Give that a tighten and see what happens. But there we go. All around there. Completely dry. There we go. Okay, so it's coming from down there. You can see it smoking. And it's bubbling up onto that. Right. How to fix it. Okay, so that little bolt is out of there, and the little washer that was sitting on it. So all we can do really is just whack some instant gasket in there, screw it all back down, let it cure, and see what happens. There's always a possibility that it isn't anything to do with this bolt or gasket, and that there's a crack, it's cracked somehow, in which case a little bit of instant gasket probably won't help matters any. That'll be a new rocker cover, but this is worth a try. I've swapped those 2 coils over, I've left the plugs as they are because they all looked identical. So either I'll now start to get a misfire in what I previously thought was cylinder number 3, cylinder number 2, or I won't, in which case I'm still none the wiser as to what around these actually go, although multiple sources seem to indicate that this is cylinder number 1. The other problem, I suppose, or issue is that potentially this could be nothing to do with the coils or the spark plugs or the electrics, and it's a issue with valves or valve clearance, which is causing a misfire, which would also make sense because I do know that I'm burning oil. But if I was burning oil in just one cylinder, I would have thought maybe that the spark plug in that cylinder would look more oily than the others. So who knows, anyway, one problem at a time. Stick some silicone in that and see what happens. Right, brand new, straight out of the pack, unused. Just popped it, just got to put this on, and just doesn't fit. Right, nice one. That, I think, can be safely filed under "for fuck's sake." Right, so yesterday we put a little bit of silicone around that bolt in the bottom of the rocker cover and cleaned it all up. and we swapped the coils from cylinder number 1 and cylinder number 2, or what could be cylinder number 3 and cylinder number 4. So what we'll do now is just have a little look at 4 and 1. And 4 says 0 and 0. 1 says 17 and 0. So we'll go for a little drive, see what happens with the oil and the misfiring. Okay, it's been about a week since I put some silicone in the bottom of the rocker cover socket there in between the two spark plug wells. You're on 74653 now, so we've done about 120 something ish miles since then. Engine management light is off, nothing showing up, no coolant fan coming on. And nice and clean, no oil underneath here, no oil seeping out from here, so I think this was just oil making its way from here, running along this feed and sort of pooling here. So we're all good. There is still a misfire that is now on cylinder number 4, which is this one. I think a new coil will sort that out. A little bit intermittent. Yes, we are, touch wood, at the moment, for the first time since I've had the car since last May, so I've owned this nearly a year now, although it's only been on the road about 6 months. So for the first time in a year, this car is completely oil leak free, although there is oil getting into the cylinders because my oil consumption is still quite high. But now that I know the engine is externally oil leak free, I can keep a closer eye on what the oil consumption is like. So yes, running okay at the moment, barring a little cough on cylinder number 4. Right, weirdly trying to trace a misfire in what my ABD scanner says cylinder number 3. I put a new coil in what I understand to be cylinder number 3, because Peugeot label their cylinders from the gearbox end, 1, 2, 3. Still got a misfire. I thought, right, well maybe it is this one. So I put the original coil back in this one, put the new coil back in this one, fired it up. Still misfire cylinder number 3. Couldn't really understand it. So put the original coil back in this one, randomly disconnected this one altogether, fired it up, saying misfire in cylinder number 3 and no misfires anywhere else. So I've put the new coil in here now. I'll wait for it to cool down and disconnect the battery for a bit and see what happens. But for some reason, potentially, the ABD scanner is reading this cylinder as number 3. So who knows? Anyway, there's a new coil currently in here. Alright, vehicle running, no engine management light. And real status off, no fault codes. I've just changed a coil in the vacuum pump side of the engine, the gearbox side of the engine, because I had a misfire in cylinder number 3 according to this. So cylinder 1, 0 counts and 0 counts. Cylinder number 2, 0 counts and 0 counts. Cylinder number 3, 0 counts and 1 count. Cylinder number 4, 0 counts and 0 counts. Bearing in mind cylinder number 3 was showing misfires in the hundreds and the engine management light was on and it was running rough as a bag of nails, I've put a new coil in the vacuum pump or gearbox end of the engine, and cylinder number 3 I mean, to all intents and purposes, is now running fine. So I've no idea how this cheap ABD scanner counts cylinders, but firing order or cylinder numbering order, there's no way vacuum pump end or gearbox end of this engine would ever be cylinder number 3. So oh, no idea. Anyway, seems to be running okay now, so we'll just have to see what happens. Right, other little old jobs. Hang on, let me unlock it. While I'm tidying stuff up, I'm waiting for the seats to cure so that I can get them in. I'm gonna. The air vents have lost their little bit of silver trim, so I'm going to spray those up. These are the original seat belts, obviously on the original seats. The backs have been painted. That's just some enamel model paint I've just chucked on them to try and get rid of some of the pink. No one's ever going to touch them, so it doesn't matter how strong that paint is, because no one's ever going to get it. I can't imagine those seat belts are ever going to get worn, so I don't need to worry about that too much. Other little niggly bits which I've managed to sort out. This seat belt has been round the wrong way for ages, and every time I've put it on, I've had to pull it out this way and struggle with it, and I was thinking there's all sorts of things wrong with it, sort of inside here. But I thought I'd try the easy things first, and just unravelled it all the way, and it just sprang back in perfectly. So it still needs a good clean, and I'll maybe take a razor blade to this sort of frayed edges and just try and sort of shave that off a little bit. But it needs a good clean, because if you pull it out, it's none too keen about going back inside, and I think that's just dirt and grease on the seat belt. So that is on the to-do list. That's on the to-do list when it's not so windy. So other things to do, other little quick odd jobs, because I've had to buy silver paint for 4 tiny little bits of plastic, but I might as well see if I can paint these bits of silver trim as well, the centre air vent, side air vents, and the little bits on the centre console. So I've just gone and got some silver paint from Halfords, bit of grey primer and some lacquer, and I'll just see what happens. There's my cup of tea. I'm not spraying it with tea, I'm going to drink that. Don't know how much faith I've got in this primer, because when I first went to do the seat belts on the new seats, which are over there in the depths of the other garage, sprayed it up, let it sit for a little bit, and then I just used some Humbrol model paint, some gloss red model paint, and painted them up. Went to put some clear coat on, and after 24 hours that paint was still soaking wet and just rubbed straight off. So I don't know if that was to do with the primer, or just an incompatibility between the primer and that paint, or the primer and the plastic, or the paint and the plastic. I don't know, but I've bought it, might as well use it, see what happens. So all I've done now with those front seat belts is I've repainted them without the primer. I'm taking a bit of a gamble, because you are supposed to use primer. They're sitting in the porch drying out in the vain hope of some sun. So that's them, that's a couple of coats, and I'm just going to leave them and put them in and see what happens, and I'm just going to hope that that paint is going to dry hard. I'm not going to clear coat it. I was going to clear coat it, but I've changed my mind now, because clear coating, if you clear coat something, really you need to polish it first, because a clear coat will go on a little bit not uneven, not really the right word, but it needs to be polished, and you can't really polish those because of the ridges on the letters. You'll end up just rubbing it straight off. So rather than clear coat it, I'm just going to leave it as it is. Back to the trim, stick a little bit of panel wipe on, bit of hair dryer action, because it's a bit muggy and humid today and it's raining on and off, so probably not the best day to do any spraying, to be honest, but I need to get it done. So this is the job for this afternoon, because the weather's too poor to do anything else, and I'm still waiting on some compressed air for the airbrush to finish off the back seats for the leather. Anyway, we'll get on with this. Right, so the original plan with masking stuff up and trying to spray just didn't work. Let me try and get a lock on there. There it is. So yeah, it didn't work. Running
too windy. The stuff I'd masked off, the bin bags I was using was going everywhere. So plan B, very, very, very thin model making brush. I sprayed some of the silver paint that I'm going to use on these trim pieces into the top of the lid, and just dabbed some of this on, sealed it, masked it off with packing tape, because this just wasn't sticking anywhere. If God appeared to me in a blinding light right now and said, you've got one wish, anything at all, you can have it, it wouldn't be a long, healthy, happy life, it wouldn't be riches and health for my friends and family, it wouldn't be peace in Ukraine, it would be masking tape that would actually fucking stick to things. So yeah, I gave up with the masking tape and just use some good old proper packing tape instead. Oh yeah, and I've ruined that trying to get a stain off stupidly without thinking it through. I used the panel wipe because that was what I had sitting in here after I'd given this a very, very light sand, and I've absolutely ruined it. So I think I'm going to have to get a new one. I think that is beyond repair now. Yeah. Should have thought it through, but I was getting frustrated with this, and while I was sitting here I thought, well, I might as well try and clean that up a little bit because it's never looked great, and I have mullered it. But on the plus side, there is now some semblance of a finish on the air vents. Common sense or logic tells me just leave it. You've got one coat on there, leave it as it is. If I put another coat on, I'm risking runs and that sort of thing. I haven't decided yet. And also with lacquering it, don't know what to do there with regards to lacquering it. I can't spray it. I might have to do the same thing and just dip or spray some lacquer into the top of the lid and paint a very light coat on and leave it. I don't think I'll be able to polish it. So I'm not really sure what to do with that yet. But that's some semblance of progress anyway. Maybe as much progress as I'm going to get on this. We'll see how this turns out. Right, so now I figured out the seat belt and got that all untangled and the actual seat belt facing the right way. I'm going to try and clean it up and soak it in some laundry detergent to see if some of the dirt comes out or grease, whatever's in it, and that helps it go up and down a little bit better, because it's really taking its time. Well, a couple of hours ago, that was clean water. That's horrible. So these seatbelts really were filthy. Time will tell whether that's actually helped them go in and out any better. But yeah, at least they're a bit cleaner. Alright, finishing touches to the front seat belts. Now they've been painted. That is just some enamel model paint. There's no primer underneath that, because when I first tried to do it, the paint didn't sit on top of the primer. And I'm not going to put clear coat on top, because I'm not convinced that once it's done I'll be able to polish it and not lose any of the red underneath. So that is just enamel paint, and we'll see what happens. Finishing touches, got some nice fresh sticky backed felt to put on them, and then they're going to go on the seats, and then with a bit of luck all in the car, and that'll be the interior done. Well, new floor mats to go in, and the plastic trim around the air vents and such forth. But we're on the home straight now, fingers crossed, unless anything goes horribly wrong. Right, rest of the interior swapping day today. Managed to get the rears in yesterday with the roof up still because it was raining, but the roof has to come off today to do the fronts. I'm in between showers, so the idea is seats out of the way, another vacuum, and then a blow of air to get things out, and then a wash, and then a wet vac. I don't have a proper extractor. Going over of all of the black trim. The silver trim around the air vents are off still. They've been painted. Don't know how well they're going to come out, but yeah, so sort out the floor mats, and then once those are done,
I'll be putting the leather seats back in, and then as a little treat for the inside, new cabin filters and an aircon sanitizer. The oil leak on the inlet manifold made for some nasty smells coming through occasionally, so I suspect that cabin filter that's in there, it's tucked away in there, it's seen better days. I took it out and cleaned it when I first got the car, gave it a little bit of a rinse, but it needs to be changed. So new leather seats, nice leather smell, freshly washed carpets, sanitised aircon system, and the new cabin filter should hopefully make this finally get rid of the occasional smells that pervaded from time to time. Anyway, I'm not going to stand here yakking while I've got some dry weather. I'm just going to get on with it. So not much of this is going to be filmed. Next time you see it, it will have a full leather interior and be a bit tidier, fingers crossed. Well, there's the old cabin filters. I'd already given these a wash when I got them, but I think they've definitely seen better days now. Nice new Bosch ones. They're down the right way. There's a little arrow, tells you what way to put them, and same as on there somewhere, little arrow pointing down. Some nice hand instructions in case anyway. So new cabin filters, and I just got a bit of tidying up. The interior's in. The looms did turn out to be the same for the heated seats, but I don't know yet when I reconnect the battery if I'm going to get any warning lights for seatbelt pre-tensioners or airbag or whatever, because they're not the original seats, but crossing my fingers. And then we'll put floor mats in, and the car will have floor mats for the first time ever once I've cleared those cables out of the way. So yeah, the rain's held off, which is good, so I'm not going to chance it. I'm going to just whack these in and crack on. Well, there's my little aircon sanitizer thing there charging away, making a mess. It says you're supposed to put it right the way forward in the passenger footwell, but if you do that, it just drips, just hits the bottom of the dashboard and starts dripping on the carpet. So I haven't done that. I pulled it forward a little bit. I'm supposed to just run that now and wait for the smoke to stop happening, and then run it for 5 more minutes, and then see how it smells inside, I suppose. How exciting. Interior looks nice through the closed windows. Can't actually tell if the heated seats are working or not because it's quite a warm day. But yeah, and the rear floor mats haven't got a hope in hell of fitting. Not that I'm bothered really, because no one's ever going to get in the back of there. But the fact is, you pay for them, so you want them to work, and they quite clearly don't fit. But they've been sat in the garage for weeks, so I'll never get money back off them now. But it's the front seats are in, feeling comfortable, and I have to wait till it gets dark or a bit colder to see if the heated seats work, which I'm not too fussed about really. Be nice, but not too fussed. Nice clean leather is the important thing. Alright, well that's the bits of interior trim sprayed up now. The last bit of lacquer has just gone on. I just used some wheel trim, silver paint, and some Alfred's clear coat that I had knocking around. Sanded them down, primed them up first. Looks like I'm going to have to give these a day or two to harden properly, and then I have to make a decision about whether I just want to put them straight on with like a slightly matte sort of brushed finish, or do I want to give them a little sand and polish up with a Dremel. I haven't decided yet, but they're done anyway, and they're just going to be left to harden now. That's the last bit of the interior left to do really, so fingers crossed these will turn out okay. Okay, so the leather interior is done and in the car, and I'm really pleased with it. This is where it was looking a bit scabby down here, and again on this side it was looking a bit scabby. There was quite big not cracks that have gone all the way through the leather, but certainly blemishes. Now if you look really closely you can see where I could have put a bit more effort into filling and sanding this back here and here, but I've never done this before, so on balance, some arsehole in a motorbike thinking he's clever. So the damage that was here, where it was starting to look sort of visibly scuffed even from a distance, even from just from standing out just outside the car, you wouldn't really know. It looks really good. The back seats where there wasn't any damage, they just needed to be repainted, and I mean, you'd be hard pushed to say that they weren't brand new. Painted the seatbelt buckles, they've come out quite nicely. The seatbelt buckles in the front again have come out nice, and there's nice new felt on them as well, so there's no sort of scabby bits of cobwebs and stuff that were on it. Go around to the passenger side. Again, there were quite a lot of cracks on this seat bolster here. And again, you can still kind of see that they're there, and you can see here where I could have probably put a bit more effort into sanding, but it seemed okay visibly when to the eye. It seemed all right. I think because I'm used to doing bodywork sanding, automotive sanding, and it doesn't give, whereas leather does. So when you're pushing on it, it's sort of flexing, and I think maybe that's why it doesn't. It hasn't come out perfect, because it was kind of giving, and I could have done it maybe just for another 5 minutes. But certainly a massive improvement on how it turned up, and even how they turned up was a massive improvement on the cloth interior that was in it. There was a big, on the cloth one there was a couple of tears here, so I'm really pleased. Got some new floor mats, the air vent surrounds have been taken off and sprayed, sanded back, primed, sprayed and clear coated. Where there was no silver on the actual sort of control of the vent, now they've got a nice little dab of silver paint on them. New gear knob that I got from France, needed a bit of fiddling, but it's on now. Decent looking switches, and the sun's reflecting off those a little bit, but yeah, they look much better. Yeah, but certainly with regards to the leather, they have come out really very well indeed. Can't get the heated seats working, don't know why that is. I chucked some fuses into behind here where I think they're supposed to go, 20 amp fuses. I'll have a little quick look. So in here initially there was just this one fuse which said 20 on it. I couldn't actually find anything specific about where the fuses, or what fuse it was, other than it was a 20 amp fuse somewhere around here. So I've just chucked a 20 amp fuse here and here. I might take one of these out and put one in this end here and see if that makes a difference, but at the moment I can't get any joy out of them. It's not the end of the world. I just wanted the leather. The fact that they were heated was neither here nor there really when I was buying them. I'll just want it back and have a look in here. I mean, they didn't need any sanding or anything like that. I just wanted the white stitching re-dyed black, because I think it looks a bit nicer. Yeah, I cannot tell you how pleased I am with how this has come out. It really does look like a very nice little car in here now. Leather on the doors has come out nicely. Yes, can't complain at all. It looks really good. And this stuff from Furniture Clinic has been superb. The other thing that I was worried about was spraying and lacquering with these little holes fill up, the little perforations, but they haven't done. They've really come out quite well. There's some, you can kind of tell that it's been sanded a little bit, because there's grain still here and there's no grain here where it's obviously been sanded. And again on this bit here, there's grain here, there's no grain here. Ironically, if this had been better quality leather without so much grain on it in the first place, it would have blended in a little bit better. So I'd have been able to do a better job if the leather had been better in the first place. But yeah, you can see here there's way less sort of cracking now that it's got fresh lacquer on it. These were looking sort of on the verge of cracking when I pushed into them. They seem to be much more flexible now. So yeah, all in all, this really has turned out quite a nice little interior. It's starting to get a bit windy now. I'd be surprised if it starts to rain, so I'm going to put it away. I've got to give it another couple of days before I can put any moisturiser on it or anything like that. But yes, yeah, the Furniture Clinic
repair kit and recolouring kit has been excellent. Had to order some more air for the airbrush, which held things up a little bit. The kit's builder's having everything you need. This isn't really true because I ran out of air for the airbrush, but they sent some more along and I got there in the end. In terms of the actual quality of the colouring and the repair and how the leather's turned out, it's superb. With a bit more experience, if I'd done this before a couple of times, I reckon I could have made this look even better. Yeah, what a very, very nice interior I've got now. Need to get a new steering wheel. That's the only problem really, is when you start getting bits of the car looking really, really good, the bits that aren't great really start to stand out. But I can certainly live with this for the time being.